Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, John.
Looks like 10 a.m. and this is Woodturners Coffee Hour. I don't know if it's 68 or 69 because I lost track of the last recording. So I'll clean all that up later today. This is sponsored by Lancaster Area Woodturners. We're now back on our winter schedule of every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. If you dare and if you're vaccinated and if you have a mask, you can join us here at Kaufman Kitchens in New Holland. And if you would rather stay home and watch on TV, you can do that too. And as I see, we've got 24 on screen right now and 3 of us in the, well, 3 in the room, including me. That's 25 people altogether participating this morning. 26. Yeah. Please silence your cell phones so they don't ring in the middle of the meeting, and you won't like it. If you do, what else did I need to caution you about? Probably that's it. Yeah. Nice to be back. I actually find it more congenial to meet every week than every other week because it gives my week a structure. When it's every other week, there I am sitting there. Okay, do I have to do something this week or not? I don't know. When it's every week, it makes it, it gives me something to work with in this crazy COVID time. 24, 27, 28 now. We got one short video to show today that Ernie has about some new chucks from Axworthy. There's been a lot of interest, I notice, online in these chucks, so we'll do that. And let's see who else has got stuff. Let me know if you've got things you want to show and tell or play with here today. Any show of hands here?
You got mine.
1, 2, 3. Oh, we need some more than that to fill the hour up. There's 4. Yeah, we'll get you. We'll get to you all. The best way to communicate in this is to raise your hand physically, and I'll see it. And use the raise hand feature, which you can find down on, I don't know, reactions. Yeah, you raise hand, and what raise hand does, when you click raise hand, it moves your picture up to the top left-hand corner of my screen. So I can't miss that your hand is up. And I might not get to you immediately because I got somebody else I'm looking toward, but I will get to you. And I think usually we find we got just enough stuff that people want to do that nicely fills the hour. So we're going to play it that way today. They'll give the first. I got any, let me see. Any questions anybody's got? Questions or comments before we start going around?
Are you there by yourself this morning, John?
You can see there on the LAW meeting room screen that Roy and Lloyd are in the room.
Okay.
That's
when was the last meeting?
That was this one here. There they go.
Okay.
Yeah. I like very much the symmetry of it, that I can see everybody who's out there in Zoom land, and you can see everybody who's here in the room, and we all have an equal play here. It's very, very nice. It's very, very democratic in this crazy era. Ernie, are you ready with your little video?
I am.
Right.
I also might add there's a very short little introduction to the German Ore Mountain skew that I did as part of this same video, that you see some of the German toys that might be fun for about 30 seconds after this clip.
Go for it. Well, you lost it again.
Oh, gee. There we go. And now I'll play. The British company Axminster have always been known for innovation and high quality. Unfortunately, for a number of years, they have not been available in the United States. Therefore, it is a happy event that the wood turning store in Long Island has started stocking this superior line of chucks and accessories. This is an SK114 chuck, and it has their C jaws in it. It's a 4.5-inch diameter chuck. It's a big chuck. They make smaller ones. And a nice feature of their chuck line is that the small jaws will fit on the bigger chucks, but some of the bigger jaws won't fit on the small chucks, but they are pretty compatible up and down the range. The chuck has 3 bevel gears that are captive in the chuck, and you simply turn it with this very nice square key. Other really cool features about this chuck are the way the screw, the worm screw, fits in. Instead of having to put it in here and get it in back of the top jaws, you simply drop this disc in here, and it has a slope that matches the dovetail slope of the inside of the jaws, and it locks right in there. We now can screw pieces onto this. And it will take very small items very well. Equally cool is this accessory, which fits in the same way, drops behind the jaws, and you can now drop a Morse taper into that, and you've got a Morse taper drive, so you don't have to take the chuck off to do the odd spindle job. Finally, you can buy these rings, which you can screw to any work, and they really make it become a faceplate. You simply close it up, drop your piece over it, expand it inside there, and you've got your piece on a faceplate. The chuck is stainless steel, so it won't rust. Beautiful quality, nice touches like back of the bottom jaws being radius so they won't cut you when they come around. Take a look at the Axminster, very nice chuck. It's available in 1 inch 8, 1.25 inch 8, or 33 millimeters, direct threading only, for they feel that they get more accuracy out of a direct threaded chuck. A new old tool that's been around since last part of the 1600s is the Ore Mountain skew chisel. The Ore Mountain region straddles eastern Germany and the Czech Republic, and it has been known since the late 1600s for its toy makers. The Ore Mountain toy makers made a variety of toys, all of which entailed a good amount of wood turning. Amongst them were Christmas pyramids, which were revolving nativity scenes that went around by the power of 4 to 8 candles under a fan blade. The typical nutcracker you see at Christmas time, and smokers. You can see this little gnome-like guy is all turned, and you put a piece of incense down in here, close them up, and he blows smoke rings. You can see that in his hand, he has an Ore Mountain skew chisel, which they developed. They put one big bulbous handle on it, which I think I might try rehandling mine that way. You can see the definite connection between that chisel and this one.
So that's it. It's those were all belong to Susan and I, and we get them out every Christmas and enjoy them. My son brought the smoker back from his time in Switzerland, and the other one we bought in Leavenworth, Washington, which is a sister city to Oberammergau for about 6 months in 1970.
So is that skew the same as the Colwyn Way skew that Craft Supplies is selling?
Yeah, it is.
It's not thicker?
No, the one I showed there was a made by Crown Tools. Colwyn Way. Yep.
I also got a 1/2 inch one in that same pattern, but the 1 inch is much friendlier, much nicer.
I have all 3 sizes and I use them all. The really small one's nice for cleaning up a tenon where you want it to fit really nice, but I tend to use a big skew exclusively.
So what's the price on that chuck roughly? Do you know?
I think it's a little less than $400 when I looked at it. And I should mention that you can get a 50mm set of jaws called the Mick O'Donnell jaws. He developed them a long time ago in conjunction with Axminster. And they're what you saw turning the magic balls and everything that Mario uses. And I'm going to buy a set of them just as soon as I can have available funds for it, because they're really a nice set of jaws. And you can get into a recess and hold the bowl blank with it being out from the chuck a little bit, get to it a lot easier. And they'll hold round objects like balls and are about as good as a jam chuck in some cases.
I was going to ask you about the O'Donnell jaws, because those seem to be really unique to that chuck, and no one else seems to sell them. Cindy Drozda uses them to actually put a tenon further up on her work and mount and then finish it up later, but it allows you to grip it much further up the piece, which seems to be very unique to me.
Yeah, I think they are really well thought out. I might be willing, if it was my first chuck, to buy that chuck just for the O'Donnell jaws. They're that cool.
That's what I've been considering. Exactly that.
Well, so here I am with 2 Nova chucks and 4 one-way chucks. And are you telling me that it would be to my advantage to dump all that and start over with the Axminster? Is it that good?
I think so. I have an awful big pile of one-way chucks here, and they're very good. But as we've all talked in past discussions, there's a hole in the jaw sizes of their chuck line. But I think their system of putting the bushings in on a Jarno taper makes them as accurate as a direct threaded chuck. And I'm not sure why Axminster feels that a direct threading is more accurate, but I can't quite buy that.
Up until about a year ago, Lee Valley sold those chucks for years.
Yeah, and they quit selling them.
Well, I bought 4 of them over time.
Yeah. And you're happy with them?
You got your hand up. Go for it, Kai.
Yeah, I've got the O'Donnell jaws as well. So I can take some photos, and I've been using them for some time, so I can show them at the next meeting.
That would be nice. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Ernie, if you had a guy like say Barry Price, who's really good at the machining, could he make one of those inserts for a one-way or another chuck, like the one you had for the center?
I don't see why not. It's a straightforward machining job, and any decent machinist should be able to make you a good insert adapter, shall we call it. But the problem with inserts threaded into a chuck, there is always a certain amount of play in a thread, and how it seats becomes problematic.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of Nova chucks, and I got some record power chucks, and the inserts on the record power registers on the outside, which is real easy, and they're well machined. The Novas, the inserts were much more difficult to crank down, and they register on the inside, and I've seen enough posts on forums where people complained about run out because they didn't understand, they didn't have it cranked down enough to register on the inside.
Yeah, that's Nova has also finally gone right hand, with their latest chuck,
new and improved.
Yeah,
with dovetail jaws, new and improved.
Yeah, it's in the same video. I have that in there. This was a new tool video I did for Woodworkers Journal, but the whole reason they went left hand was old man Latimer, who started the company, Roger and Brian's father. a common industrial accident in those days, still is with metalworking, is that a chuck that's worn and just idling on a lathe, the inertia of the scroll can open the jaws, and if there's no safety pin, the jaws fly out. So he reversed the direction, thinking it'll close it now, and it makes it safer for wood turners who work at much higher speeds than metal workers. And so for years, it's sort of their story, and they're sticking to it. They've made these, even though they quickly safetied their original chuck with a set screw in the number 4 keyway. And so they've got along 200 out or 180 degrees out from everybody else, and have lived with it for years. And if you're working in a shop like mine, where you got students and all these different chucks laying around, it is so niggling to walk up to a Nova and have to turn it backwards. So I'm so happy they've gone right hand.
So
Hey, Ernie,
let me ask you guys who do a lot of turning, how many chucks do you have?
I have over 40.
Don't ask Bill.
Who has over 40?
I do. I have all the major brands, and I do not find one of them any better than the other one.
Ah,
They all work just like they're supposed to. And the original Vic Mark also opened like the Nova because it was a copy of the Nova.
well, how did you get up to 40, Bill? What's the path?
I don't know. I just like see a chuck I bought. I just bought a new one called a Vivor, $79. And the next time I looked at it, it was down to 74. I told them they just give me $5 back this morning. Chinese company, but the chuck looks really nice.
I have 7. I have 5 Novas and 2 record powers.
I have 7, and I started out, I swore I would never have 2 of a different kind. They're all one way. All the jaws fit everybody else's jaws, and they all turn the same way. And I can't imagine having a chuck that turns one way and another one turns the other way.
Well, the record power are almost, superficially, they're almost knockoffs of the Nova, because they used to distribute the Nova, but they did make some, I believe they're a higher quality. I think they're machined better. They have heavier carriers. The insert has a better design, and they turn righty-tighty like all the other chucks as opposed to the Novas. But the good thing about it, just like the Novas, the jaws are interchangeable between the 2 manufacturers. You just have to reverse the 2 and the 4.
They're also interchangeable with the Sorby line too.
Yes, they are.
Which they all seem to be made in the same factory, quite frankly.
No, I don't. I hear that, but I don't believe it after looking at them, because they are all have differences that are enough. And the Nova has they always said they had their own factory with their own quality control.
I bet you $1 million are made by Nova.
I would concur with that all these Chinese manufacturers will make to any quality standard you want.
Yeah.
Well, any quality standard you'll pay for.
Yeah.
I believe the record powers, I thought they were made in Great Britain. I'd have to double check.
hey, Ernie,
Yeah.
is this the Axminster set you're talking about right here?
Yeah.
Let me spotlight you, Barry, so everybody can see that.
Yes.
It's a 265 complete as you see it here. The one set of jaws, the ring, and the insert that Ernie was showing.
Yep. That's a pretty darn good price. I think that might be the next size down from this Chuck.
That's the 100.
Yeah.
I always wondered about, the need to buy those rings, because, I use threaded glue blocks and regular face plates. But what I discovered, that if you do very large turnings, that you would normally use a faceplate for. With a really heavy blank, it is so much easier to mount that thing onto a jaw set, because once you get it lifted, it'll just slide over those jaws, and then that will support it while you're tightening it up.
John Barry's still spotlighted.
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay, let me see what I can do here.
I just checked my inventory. I have about 20 chucks.
Comment to Mike Peace here, talking about lifting a large piece up on the jaws. What I do a lot of times is lay the piece on the bed of the lathe and take the chuck off the spindle and lay the chuck onto the tenon, clamp it down, and then lift the piece up and thread it, excuse me, thread it onto the chuck.
The problem with threading it, though, if you've got a 50 or 60 pound blank, threading that thing is a far larger challenge than just lifting it up and slipping it onto the jaws, where the jaws will support it while you tighten it.
I'm able to grip between my elbow and my tummy and hold the weight of it, and with the other hand spin the back, hand wheel, and I have much less trouble doing it that way. I get
Richard Raffin had an article back a few years ago in American Woodturner on jaws that was just excellent, and his comment was a woodturner did not need more than 11 chucks, and I think that's because that's how many he had.
Yeah.
About 9 short. I have 2.
Anybody else on chucks before we move on?
Is this sort of like saying a segmented turner always needs one more clamp?
Every woodworker needs more clamps. There's no end to that.
Always need more clamps.
Yeah.
I think the question is really what chuck you own, not how many.
Well, I think it's a real trap for beginners to get stuck in the wrong brand. I mean, I started with Nova, which I hated, and I switched over to One Way, and now I buy One Way. I agree with Duxbury, stay with one brand. But now I've got a substantial investment in One Way, and I see this Axminster, and I lust for it. So what's the value of a full set of beat up old One Way chucks? Not very much. So how much more do I want to keep pouring down the chuck rat hole?
You only need 7.
Yeah, well, 11, Raffin says. I don't have anywhere near that.
I have to tell you, like Ronald, I pinch my piece against me and put my leg under one end and whatever, until a couple years ago, I got poison ivy down both sides of my arms and my stomach and down one leg.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
I think you need 5 chucks per lathe.
5 chucks per lathe. That's a good number to work with. Anybody else on chucks before I move us on?
I say we chuck it.
All right, let's check it. Duxbury, you got your hand up. What do you got today?
Oh, can I do a screen share?
You sure can.
If I know how to do this. Wait a minute. These are spiral illusions, 6x6 blocks of wood. The screws go in where the corners are missing. So I screw it to a flat face plate. It's about 1 inch thick. These are about 1 inch thick. And the design on this is actually one center out here. And the center of this first set of rings is offset 1/4 inch toward the bottom. And the other set is offset 1/4 inch towards the top. And this is a 1 inch circle in the center. So that puts this bar right through the center of that other circle. This is 1 inch thick on the outside, tapers down to a 1/4 inch, a thick 1/4 inch in here across the center. And then these are cut out. These are about 1/8 of an inch deep. And
those are for just for pretty, or do you have something that you use those for, or something else they become part of?
Oh, I sell them as art pieces. People love them.
They're very nice.
I have made lamps out of them and things. They're gorgeous as lamps, and they sell unbelievable. They're a lot of work.
What's the finish?
Lacquer. This is one done. This is probably about 14 or 16 inches wide and about 7 inches high. And the offset is sideways. Here the screws go in this corner. I use 4 screws in here. So
and is there a lot of hand sanding on this once you get it turned?
no, I run the whole thing through a drum sander before I do the whole thing. And then as I turn this center out, I sand the middle of this, power sand it. And then as I cut these out one at a time, I sand like I would cut the center out of this center first one. And then actually that is on center when you're doing that. So I would sand inside that. Then when I cut the next ring out, I would sand inside the next ring, and you work your way out. On the other side, you only got, on the first side, you've got the full back supporting it. On the second side, you've only got the little rings supporting it. So you've got to sand very carefully.
So you sand as you go.
Control the depth of that cut.
How do I control it?
Yes.
I pray. And I have a depth gauge, a small depth gauge that I use to get my, believe it or not, after you've done a couple of these, one of the things with precision turning is you always reference from the same surface. So I reference from this surface out here, and I reference down to the top of these rings. And then I use my depth gauge to reference from the top of here to the bottom of there. So you don't reference to here and then reference down to there, because you got a double error, set of errors. But I mark the center. This before I do, I mark the side of the board, the center, and then I mark the height of the top of these rings that I want, and set my depth gauge, and I cut to the top of the rings. And then I set my depth gauge to the center of the piece, and I start cutting and cut the center out.
So what tool are you using to do that?
A small, probably a 16th inch parting tool, ground really low angle, really sharp.
And on the for the flat areas, are you a square end scraper?
Flat areas, I cut down with a gouge, and then I probably hit it with a flat scraper. And then I sand this whole, from this center, on this center, I sand this whole thing out. It's like a bowl. It's like a shallow bowl. I sand it out with a 3-inch disc sander, or power sanded. And this radius just happens to be the end of a 5-gallon bucket. I don't lay out radiuses. I have coffee cans and buckets and all kinds of fun things that you can.
What's your success rate on these?
So how's this held on the lathe?
There'd be screws in, this would be on a flat faceplate. There'd be a screw like here and a screw like here. Okay. And then you cut those out later. On the other ones, I'll go back if I can. Did I go back? Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other ones, there'd be a screw like in here and a screw like in here.
So what's your failure rate when you're making these?
I don't have a failure rate, John.
Great.
The man said he prays. I mean, what else can you say?
I had one failure rate the other day, and I damn near hit myself in the head, but I should have used a chuck. I offset the same way both times, and you end up with this handful of little rings. I can't believe I did it. And it was on a gorgeous piece of wood. This is a taller piece, so you end up with more rings. This is a piece of cherry, probably about 9 inches wide. And this is this is the other end of the 5-gallon bucket, I think, to make radiuses. I don't use compasses on most of this stuff. Anyway, that's one of the things. And then I've been doing pepper mills. I make lighthouse salt mills and pepper mills. The white ones are salt mills, and the walnut ones are pepper. This is how they come apart. And That's what the bottom looks like. So that's been a week.
Very, very nice.
Have you got one of your kaleidoscopes stuck?
Do I? I have a few of those. Yeah. It's amazing. Kaleidoscopes have not in fashion anymore. Nobody wants those. They need LEDs and push buttons and, you know. I still make them. Yeah, I still have them around. I'll stop share here.
Yeah, stop the share. Okay, we're
Gotcha.
back to gallery. Any other questions for Jim? Very, very handsome. Next guy with his hand up there is Dave Delo. What do you got, Dave?
Hi, everyone. Hey, you know, last time we met, I had talked a little bit about shot blasting and sandblasting pieces, and I had done this bowl of sycamore and stained it. And before I wanted to go and booger that up, I tried some test pieces, and just to give you an idea of what I did is I took an old bowl, just a scrap bowl that I use for putting anchor seal in, and tried this out. I don't know if you can see it. So I put the
we can see it really well.
Pardon me?
We can see that really well.
Okay, great. So I put this on just a scrap piece, a little piece, and then blasted on the sides of this cherry piece. And that kind of discouraged me a little bit, because I actually wanted to get rid of all of this, and it just doesn't want to release from the pores there. So I tried another section. Maybe you can see that. And that's a little bit what I was looking for originally. In this is nice and smooth, and then this is roughed up on the edges. So I decided to try another cherry piece, because I had heard that cherry was a decent wood to try to do this shot blasting stuff with, but I tried it on this vase here, and just wasn't very satisfied at all with you know, it's just a rough surface, almost like if you were using one of those easy wood tools with a carbide scraper that was its time had expired about 5 years ago, you know, just a very rough surface, and just didn't like that at all. So I moved on to try a little oak piece that I had, and this being more of an open grade wood. And this one, I don't know if you can see the texture in it, but this one really came out very nice. I'm very pleased with this. You can see the medullary rays in it, and it's just what I like. You know, normally when I do like oak, I like to do the the old Russ Fairfield trick with the shoe polish, and I really like that. And I may try on the next one that I do, I may try that. I was just gonna leave this one the old famous brown and round. I put one coat of the what is it, the Watco honey oak stain on finish on it, and left it. I may buff this out, but I don't know. I might just leave it like it is. But very pleased with this piece versus the cherry. And if anybody has any more suggestions or advice, I'm open ears.
Well, show us the contraption. What do you got, a sandblast cabinet, or what are you
Yeah,
doing?
one of those little job smart benchtop cabinets. You know, you can buy them at Harbor Freight. This one I think came from, I bought this one for $25 at a auction, and I think Northern Tool sells this one. Just
what size compressor do you have to make that run?
Well, I got a 2 horsepower compressor, 175 psi, and it ran quite a bit. But I'm going off with some instructions from Al Hockenberry, and he wants you to use a 1/8" nozzle on this thing. And I don't have one, and I can't find one that's an 1/8" nozzle that fits in my gun, so to speak. So I may use another gun, find a gun that'll take that 1/8", because there's a number of different styles of nozzle tips and how they fit into the gun. And I wasted $8 at Harbor Freight on one of their little packages that had a 1/8" nozzle in it, but it just doesn't seat correctly in the gun itself.
Now, are you blasting sand or shot?
No, I bought this Bilotti, let's see, it's a 4070 glass, ground glass. Okay.
And is that powered by an air compressor?
Yes.
Questions for Dave? Interesting work. I'd like to see that done on some, I've seen it done on Douglas fir. I'd like to see it on the cypress that I've been working with. It has the same characteristics as Doug fir. It's got the hard parts of the growth rings is very hard, and the soft part is very soft. You can practically turn it into, do what you're doing with a wire brush just by hand. It's so soft. Or if you sand aggressively, you sand away the soft. So you have to sand with a light uniform touch. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could show that oak bowl again, David. Show the back side of it. I was thinking I could see the texture a lot better on the back than on the inside of the bowl when you're showing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's very sharp. Very nice.
That's way cool. Thank you.
The guy Pascal Udette does that. I'm sorry, I cut somebody off.
I was interested in, you mentioned shoe polish. Does that work for staining bowls, and does it hold up over time?
Yes, I really like it. It's my favorite finish on oak, actually.
Probably what oak deserves is shoe polish, right?
The Russ Fair, if you Google Russ Fairfield, he has a video on it, and he does some where he puts the shoe polish on, and then he does the liming wax over top of that, and some really cool finishes.
They do that in Hawaii on Koa. They use a brown kiwi shoe polish and buff the daylights out of it, and it comes out gorgeous.
Do you varnish over it or lacquer over it, or is that the final finish?
That's well, when I've done it, that's the final finish.
So Kiwi is the brand, or what brand of shoe polish?
Yeah, I like the Kiwi. I've bought some off-brand stuff that I don't think it works quite as well. The Kiwi works extremely well.
So you do it just like you were doing your shoes, or like we used to do our shoes.
Yeah, you have to put you put sanding sealer on the piece first, then you lightly sand down that, then you put the shoe polish on and let that dry, and then you take tung oil and you wipe off the excess with that.
Do you buff it in there somewhere?
And you can buff it in there, but as you wipe this off with tung oil, there's really no buffing needed.
Very nice.
Brings me back to Saturday nights back home when I was a kid.
What, shining your shoes for the week?
For Sunday morning, you had to have your shoes shine for church.
Of course.
I have a question.
I did have a question for Ernie. And that was, I saw he had a guy on, made a video, and he had a guy on doing the cat litter type stuff for drying a bowl. Never found out exactly what brand that was or where he came up with that.
That was Dave Hout.
Yeah.
And who lives down in Akron and is a very neat guy. He actually had a cable TV turning show for a couple of years. And but it's a desiccant, and he buys it on Amazon. But he works with a company that makes the a line of vacuum chucks, and they actually sell it as a kit with all the pails and everything necessary. But you can actually dry the desiccant back out in a toaster oven. But I don't know, all that seems so fiddly when you can just turn a few blanks and throw them in the corner and wait, that I just can't.
I kind of figured I would need to spend a couple $100 to do that, and it's just easier just to throw it on the rack.
Yeah.
John Jordan made the comment that folks that like to mess with stuff like to mess with stuff.
Yeah, well, that would be many of us.
Dave, I did try the cat litter. It does work. I used a 5-gallon bucket and fresh cat litter. Didn't use it after my cat had already used it. It wasn't secondhand, and it did work. It did shorten the drying time and no cracking. No
don't you have to then dry out the cat litter to use it again?
Don't know. Never used it again.
Gave it to the cat to use.
You have to use it before the cat, not after. Anybody, any more comments on Dave's work? I'm very impressed with that as well.
Alan here, kind of a follow-up question. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but on the sanding sealer, that's something you put on and let dry before you sand it again lightly?
Oh, yes.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Barry.
Yeah. I got first a question for Dave, and that is, did he ever try, or have anybody ever tried using a pressure washer to achieve texture on the surface of a bowl or a surface of wood? I know I've done pressure washing on my house, and if I by mistake use the 0 angle, the very focused water pressure, I can destroy wood. And I think somewhere between destruction and texturing is where my target would be.
Yeah.
I think that's what
Anybody
to
ever
try.
done pressure washing on wood?
I've heard of it done, but I haven't actually seen it. A couple of guys have told me about it, but I'm like you. I've just used it to destroy boards in my deck.
I might have to grab scrap wood and try it, because I don't have a big compressor, and my little one would have to be, 5 seconds of spraying and 30 seconds of recovery.
Yeah.
My biggest question, Barry, is how you hold it in place, because those pressure washers can really throw, high pressure. The other part of it is that if you use a wide angle fan on it, the further away you get from it, obviously the wider angle, but the wide angle fan has still got a fairly narrow thing. So you can use a really wide angle fan and then adjust your pressure, the depth of cut by the way, how far away you're holding it. But my big, as you said, I would be worried about throwing my bowl 3/4 of the way across the lawn with the pressure it throws.
I think you might need a good raincoat.
Indeed.
Just leave it on the lathe, put a big plexiglass to protect the motor, and it won't fly across the lawn.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that'll help.
Thanks, Jim, for nothing.
I've never done it, but I heard they take the bark off big leaf maple burl with a car wash kind of pressure washing.
Yeah.
Well, I was told to take a tree root out of the ground. What you do is you take your pressure washer around the roots beforehand. So now I can check out and see if it actually takes the bark off at the same time.
I've used a pressure washer to clean off burl, and it works quite well, actually. And I never found it, getting shoved across the lawn, but it works.
Barry, you got, let me see, I got to remove your spotlight. I'm going to put it back. Spotlight for everybody. Yeah.
I'm anticipating making a sizable, about an 11-inch diameter hollow vessel. And when I've done this before, it gets chattering on me when I'm doing the inside. So I made this. It's basically triangular form so that it directly loads into the vertex of the three corners of a triangle, and it bolts on the bottom to your bedway. The wheels allow adjustability, so you can go from a 12-inch diameter down to about a 4.5-inch diameter if you bring them in. And I'm anxious to try it and see how it performs at operating RPM.
Are those skate wheels?
Yeah, they are. They're the smallest diameter inline skate wheel you can buy, or at least the smallest I could find.
Are they soft or hard?
They are 85 count. I've seen as high as 89 and as low as 83. So I guess I'd say they are medium.
I found when I tried to make one of those things with soft wheels, that the wheels just bounced around. I had to use a hard wheel to get it to work.
That is a concern. Now you can preload. That was my intent, was to preload by bringing all three in simultaneously and slightly compressing the contact point of the wheel and monitoring, are you deflecting the workpiece? And short of deflecting the workpiece, run it with some steady pressure on the wood.
That makes sense.
Like I say, I haven't tried it out yet. I'm making some furniture right now, but I'll get to try this in about 2 weeks, I think, and I'll let you know how it worked out.
Are you concerned about the black wheels leaving a black mark on your piece? Barry?
What was that?
Are you concerned about the black wheels leaving a black mark on your piece?
No, but I was kind of worried about if I bought the pink ones, leaving pink marks on my wood. I mean, you got your choices here. Like I didn't see clear as an option. I saw glitter filled, and I just don't trust things that I have a fill in them.
Okay.
And so you got your choice of colors, and I figure that's why we have sandpaper, to get rid of black marks on wheels.
Fair enough.
Anybody else on that? Very impressive. I wonder, on the rods that are holding the wheels, how flexy are those? Is that good? How thick is the wood and how stiff is it?
See if I can. I'll back one out here, slide it out. It's about 0.57 thick and 1.5 inches wide.
That's substantial. Almost 5/8. Yeah.
Okay, so here's if you want to spotlight this thing.
Yeah, I'll be back. Just give me 1 sec here. Gotcha.
Okay, this is the tire itself. All the bearing faces are almost exactly 1 inch. And so my spacing on these two flanges was to allow for a bearing on each side. I'm sorry, a washer, to make sure when I clamp this down, so I didn't get wobble, and yet it friction down on the bearing and not on the rubber of the tire. And so it has actually zero play in all axes. And these things are, you could use 5/16, but they are actually sized at 8 millimeter, which is about 0.03 of an inch diameter bigger than 5/16. And that's Baltic birch plywood for the flanges, and then a solid piece of cherry. Not the best wood, but works well. I'm sorry, I did do it with cherry. I wasn't happy, and I replaced it with oak. This is red oak. You see here, it is a much stiffer wood than cherry and less prone to deflect. And through the travel, you can get, like I say, all the way out if you could draw a 12-inch circle, it would just touch the wheel and just touch the inner arc here on the inside of the frame. So 12-inch diameter will run. And I settled on that just because it's bigger than anything I ever made. I could have made bigger and it would still clear my lathe. My lathe was an 18-inch throw, so I'm anxious to try it.
Any comments on that? Any questions for Barry or comments on steady rests of that type? Nope. Okay, thank you, Barry. Vasco, you're up next.
Yeah, hi everybody. I've been in full Christmas mode. So 2 weeks ago, I started making my snowman. So here's a couple of my snowmen that I've made. I've got a red hat one too. That seems to sell well. We've got a show coming up in November at the local makers in State College here. And these do really, really well.
Are those one piece or are they multiple pieces?
This is the bodies are one piece, but the hats are a second piece. And I usually stain them or color them some way. A little trick with the nose, I make the nose out of a little dowel. I put a magic marker on it, and I have to finish it before I glue it in. Otherwise, the orange bleeds into the snowman. So
how many of those?
Well.
How many of those are you going to make?
I've made 15 of them so far, and I stop at 15, and I got to make my next group of things, which I'll show you here. These are unfinished. I just started making them, and these are my Mike Peace angels. Yeah, I learned how to make them on Mike's channel. Here's a piece of cherry. It's kind of a strange piece, but it's really pretty. Here's a couple more. So they're kind of fun to make. They're easy. They sell really well. I don't give them away, but I don't sell them too cheap either. This one is kind of fun. It's a pussy willow. I don't know if you can see the material, but it looks like it has a little cape on the back.
So what's the right price? What do you sell those for?
$15.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah, pretty cheap. If I go $20, these are pretty simple. The snowmen are a little bit more. I'm going to make a bigger version too. They'll probably go for a little more, maybe 20. And then the last piece I've been working on, it was my wife's birthday and we like cats, so I had to make her a little kitty cat. So,
that's very good.
Yep, that was kind of fun. I can't take credit for the design. I saw it on the internet. I can't remember the guy's name. I apologize for that. But this is pink ivory, and these are wood burned. I did some wood burning on them. But those are kind of fun. That's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. Just getting ready for the show. Like I said, it's a local makers, and we got invited last year as a club, and we all went, and there was a table full of bowls and a table full of little knickknacks like this and little boxes and weed pots. That's what sold. That we only sold a couple of bowls. So this year when we got invited back, so far there's only been 2 of us that are going to go into the show instead of 8 of us last year. So I think it was kind of discouraging that the bowls didn't sell.
Just a little question, Ken. How did you fix the ears to the cat's hat or the kitty's hat?
Just a little bit of glue. Just a little bit of glue. It's
okay.
It's a cut in half. There are 2 pieces that are just cut in half, and then I hollowed out the insides a little bit. And then I had problems with the radius at first, and it's not perfect, but like again, this is my first piece. So you just have to use a nice radius and try to duplicate what the head is. Came out nice.
Did you turn the ears and then cut them in half?
Yes, I turned the ears and cut them in half on the bandsaw.
Oh, okay.
I left it a little bit longer, so I had some good piece. I didn't cut it all the way through. I just cut it. So I got the ears and then I cut it off with the bandsaw the other way.
Yeah, nice. Thanks.
Nice work. Thank you.
I gotta bring spindle turning into this group a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Bruce Lamb has his hand up. We also got a guy in the room who's got some work. So let's do the room. I'm going to spotlight the room, and you're on, Roy, or Lloyd, whoever box that is. Just take it back to where you are, and I'll give you a microphone. I think that mic on the table ought to be live now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. My brother is an architect and very artistic. And so he decided for me that he wanted me to make this little bowl. The only thing is he made it upside down, and consequently, the screws went through the bottom and into the inside. But anyway, it was fine. It was pretty to make and just had fun with it. And I'll be careful when my brother wants me to do something again.
Is that walnut?
Yes.
Very nice.
Just 2 pieces laminated.
Thank you.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Here's some snowman I put together. Maybe Ken could get an idea of how to do some of his. I used the bird's feather for some of them, and the wife took some cloth and made a tie and a shawl.
Very cute. What'd you sell those for?
I didn't sell any yet.
Okay. Back to gallery. Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Jack. I got one hand left up, and that's Bruce, and we got a couple minutes
Thanks,
left.
Jack.
I got a quick one anyway. When I saw Ken do the ornaments, I couldn't help myself but find an ornament. Let's see. Let's see. I think that's right.
Got you spotlighted, so there you go.
So I like to make these Sputnik ornaments, but I find that the holes on the bottom are really large if you want to use a high quality piece of wood. And so I had some 3/4 inch ebony dowels, and I actually made the bottom spindle from 2 pieces and used a much smaller piece for the majority of the ornament, and then just used the larger diameter woods for the top here. But I think that's a better view of it.
Now, are you turning that between centers, or do you have that projecting from a chuck?
Projecting from a chuck. I find if you get really that small, trying to turn that between centers, you almost always break it, at least at the end. So I start it between centers, and I bring the diameter of the last inch or so down, and then I pull the center away.
So you do this little thin part, the projecting end first, and work your way back toward the chuck.
Yes, always at the end and work back. And that's all I've got.
I got one more hand here. Mike Peace, what do you got?
Well, I've got 2 items. I made let's get in front of me here. An ornament, and the people ask where you get the little birds, and you turn them, and I laminated a piece of scrap for the body. And the trick to these that's useful is it has a little tiny wire, so you drill a hole on the lathe through the body and a smaller hole when you turn the top, and you use this really flexible some kind of craft wire, and it extends through the body into a hole, and you mount it on, instead of mounting it on a perch, you mount it on the roof, and that little bit of wire keeps the head from knocking off with a little bit of glue, and going into the body of, or the roof, keeps the bird pretty strong when you make them and glue them that way with that little wire. The other item I have is a recent box, which I'm real happy with. It's one of my, I think, prettier boxes, and it's got 3 carved feet and an ebony knob and a spiraled band on it. It's got
there's a lot of detailing in that box. How long did it take you to make that?
I don't know, a couple of hours maybe. It's surprising how fast and easy turning the legs on a feet on a box or a bowl. I cut it out with a coping saw, used a Dremel with a sanding, one of those round sanding things, and it goes surprisingly fast.
Mike, did you do a YouTube on that?
I did. I've got a YouTube on this, which was last week, I think.
Okay.
And I've got one on turning those little birds. It's, I don't remember when I did that, a while back.
Yeah, the video was real nice. I like the way you coped the feet out. That made it look really simple.
Very nice, Mike. Thank you very much. We're up to the hour. If anybody's dying to show something or say something, now's your moment. Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you all for another entertaining Woodturners Coffee Hour. And we'll see you all next week. Same time, same place. I will be here in New Holland again next week, although I'm not sure we're going to come here every week as we go into the fall. But I will be here next week. So anybody who'd like to come out to New Holland and be here in person, you're welcome to do that. And yeah. Thank you very much for attending today, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
you, John. Catch you
See you next
later.
week.
Everybody.
Thanks, guys.